Hello and welcome to Guelph GradCast, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you real conversations with real University of Guelph grads. I'm your host, Ryan, and I'm also a Guelph grad. Today I'm joined by Matthew Hernandez. Matthew graduated from the University of Guelph with a BA in philosophy in 2024, and he just wrapped up his first year at Osgoode Law School at York. Previously, he was the president of U of G's Philosophy Society, and currently he's the executive on Osgoode's Criminal Law Society. Welcome to the podcast, Matthew. Glad to have you.
Thanks, Ryan. Good to see you.
Nice to see you too. And so I want to start things off. I know that is a little controversial, but I'm hoping you can kind of clarify it. Is it Nietzsche or Nietzsche?
It's always been Nietzsche to me.
Yeah.
It's always been Nietzsche to me, but I've heard both ways for sure.
Okay. I just want to get that because I always heard Nietzsche, but then people get upset and they're like, no, it's Nietzsche. And they get very, very opinionated about it.
To be fair, he didn't give us much to work with. It's kind of just a word salad there. We've got to figure out ourselves. So, in terms of the free for all, I think you're
All right.
you're
Okay.
good.
All right. Well, serious question though. I guess as a philosophy major, you probably have some comfort asking why type questions. So I'll start with a why question, and that is, why did you choose the University of Guelph, and why philosophy?
Well, the why philosophy, that was a super easy choice for me. I mean, back in high school, I think I was really just looking for something to dig into, to get completely and utterly connected to and engrossed in. And I think after like a class that I took online in high school in philosophy, I was like, yeah, no, this is all I want to study.
Mhm.
I think I saw out in the distance, out on the horizon, maybe law school would be interesting, but I knew just immediately philosophy was something I had to study. I think that there's something that we're all kind of born with. It's a bit of an itch for like what's more, or
Mhm.
how do I think about the things that are plaguing my mind or things that interest me on a level that regular conversation can sometimes have difficulties capturing.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's why I studied philosophy, because I knew I'm going to be talking about the thinkers, the philosophers who, really got to explore the deeper workings of our mind, of our experience, of reason generally, but also more existential stuff as well, which is always, really big and really interesting and a little bit scary, but really important as well. So I think that's why I did philosophy. But as for University of Guelph specifically, so I did a bunch of tours. I won't name all the universities, but I went to a number of universities just to see, what university would have the best, I guess, student experience, or like, I guess, be the most fitting for me. And after a bunch of tours, I finally went to the University of Guelph by my sister's recommendation, because she had gone there. She was a grad in psychology. And I don't know if it was the red brick road or just like how kind everybody was, from like the tour guide to the random students who were just hanging around. But I was like in love with campus and I guess, the student culture. It was really warm, I guess, from the physical appearance and the kind of person to person experience. It's a really warm experience. And then after attending University of Guelph, that followed through. Some of the nicest people I've ever met in my life are there. I met a lot of really, really kind people. And it was because it was, not a commuter school like a lot of people are used to in the GTA or Toronto.
Mhm.
I got to really build on those relationships that in a way that I was hoping I'd be able to. But I guess that comes after me picking. So yeah, originally it was the tour and the vibe and the campus looking like Hogwarts a little bit. I've heard that a
Mhm.
couple times.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, also in the school colors is the same as Gryffindor, so that goes towards it too. And our mascot is a griffin, which is, most of the time it's like, I don't know, like a
Just
lion.
mythical.
Yeah, but the griffin's like this cool kind of mythical creature. And yeah, it is. I've been talking to quite a few grads, and the through line is the community. That sense of community, and the campus seems to be the thing that really pushes people to like really come to Guelph and then really love it. And I think that's one thing that sets it apart. And did you, like, once you got into the program, once you were in school, did it meet your expectations, or was there anything that kind of surprised you?
It definitely met my expectations. I kind of came in at a weird time because I was a COVID high school graduate. So
Right.
class of 2020 into university. So it was a little bit odd, but I did get some time on campus in my first year. And I mean, the thing that they partly sold me on that was entirely accurate is the food. It was great. Chef Ian, I think it was, in Creelman. He
Mm-hmm.
cooked up steaks once a week, and it was some of the best steaks I've ever had in my life. My
Mm-hmm.
roommates and I, we would like come out of our dorm and just get steak, and it was like an event. It was really cool. Yeah, everything was pretty much exactly as I was hoping it would be. And I mean, I thought about the like curriculum or like what I would be learning a little bit, but coming out of high school, you kind of don't know what to be expecting.
Mm-hmm.
But by like my second, third, fourth year, the depth and the breadth of course offerings was really cool. So that kind of exceeded my expectations. Like getting to study classes on Chinese philosophy and of course the ancient Greeks, which are always awesome, and early modern and the phenomenologists. It was really good. It exceeded my expectations. Long story short.
Was there a particular philosopher or concept that you really connected with in school that you're like, oh yeah, that's my dude or that's my
That's a
lady?
great question. I think through and through, I always loved Kant. I thought his ethical theory was really interesting,
Mm-hmm.
but you kind of get lucky. It's like a sampler tray where each semester you can kind of like explore a different area. So like studying ancient Greek, you could really get into like these random ideas like everything's made of water or
Mm-hmm.
everything's made of fire or everything is a kind of influx pseudo metaphysical material and then next semester you could get into like Kongzi, which is Confucius, and get into Eastern philosophy and kind of look at things from a different perspective. And then you get into your upper year and you can start looking at like these really, really tough to grasp texts in phenomenology like Hegel and Heidegger. But I think Kant through and through had always like grabbed my attention. I thought he was just so comprehensive and principled that he was like a true academic philosopher, which is kind of how a lot of us do philosophy these days. And I really liked a lot of his work. Yeah.
Nice. And then the actual like professors and like other students, like, is there any kind of particular moment that stands out to you? You know, like kind of like an aha moment, like you're like, ah, yes, I'm in the right place. I made the right choice.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, the Society of Undergraduate Philosophers, of which I became the president towards the end of my university, my undergrad. I guess there were just like a couple times where, let's say, a trivia had wrapped up and maybe 4 or 5 people had stayed after, and we just sat around and we just talked. And I was like, oh wow, this is what I had hoped every conversation in my life would be like, but now I get to have it. Like it's something that's difficult to find because you have to come and find the people who are willing to engage with the sorts of things you're interested in talking about. And once you find them, it feels like one conversation that you've had with these people is worth like 20 conversations you've had in passing with other people. It just feels so rich and the community feels so present. That's definitely an aha moment I've had personally. And a lot of those people I'm still friends with. I still see them on occasion. I meet up with them and have those conversations. I can't go without them, honestly. And in terms of faculty, like not exactly an aha moment, but just kind of a lasting like, oh wow, you guys are great. Like I could name drop a list of professors that have just been super supportive, both in class and mentoring my learning, but also in assisting me postgraduate. So like going to law school. The chair of the department, Don Dedrick, and Peter Erdley teaching philosophy of law and medieval philosophy. John Hackerwright, he's incredible. Absolutely love the guy. I probably had the most number of courses with that professor. The breadth of courses he can teach is remarkable. The list goes on and on, but just great faculty. But my biggest aha moment is definitely with the community. I think
Mm-hmm.
I was a really community oriented person just in general.
Do you think like that's kind of like an essential part of philosophy is the ability to have a conversation with someone? Like that's to me, I think that's kind of core. Like you can read it, you can whatever, but it's really more about talking about it with people and going that back and forth. You know, the diegetic as they call it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's exactly how it is. And I mean, that's how philosophy started. If you look at the ancients, it's just people having conversations and one person annoying everybody else because they've got too much to say or
Mm-hmm.
they're a little skeptical and trying to point out flaws in people's arguments or positions. And then it moves forward. I mean, even in Sir Isaac Newton's time, like cafes, going to get coffee and talking about these things, it furthered academia just in general. So definitely, absolutely, yeah. that those conversations are at the core of philosophical discourse and community and just like personal growth as well, because you can always think something and then have people who have thought about that thing a lot harder or with different perspectives already kind of baked into theirs, and then you change your mind, your
Hmm.
perspective shifts. I think that that is like super important, and it's kind of something that you don't always get in school. Sometimes it can just be receive, receive, receive. But
Hmm.
when you have this kind of conversational, this ability to have conversation with other people in the field, you really, I don't know, you grow your perspective and engage with it personally, which is cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's kind of how I've always felt about philosophy. It really is that conversation. I think it's really important. So you mentioned it a little bit earlier on that you had considered law school. What was the thing that kind of pushed you over to be like, yeah, that is what I want to do next?
That's a great question. I think as time went on, I just more and more accepted that it's something that I could see myself doing. I guess like the decision is kind of tough because it's so far in the distance. You're like, well, could I see myself doing this job that I have no frame of reference in really knowing what they do? I mean, I get it. They do law and they stand in court, and I've seen TV shows and all that, but it's so far in the distance, it's hard to see where I place in there. So then I guess just as time went on, I realized, no, I enjoy engaging with kind of questions philosophically, and then I realized those same questions kind of apply legally in certain ways. The way that you engage with legal arguments is similar in the way that you engage with philosophical arguments, but also just personally, I find the law just, I guess, more and more interesting. I found it more and more interesting as I went on.
Hmm. And so, what was the process to like apply? Because I think a lot of people aspire to go to law school, maybe they don't really fully comprehend like the full process. Like, is it just the LSAT? But like, what other things should you consider to get into law school?
I think one of the most effective things for people who want to go to law school to, I guess, internalize is that like it's a marathon and not a sprint. So if this is something you want to do, you want to just kind of stay consistent as much as you can through school, because I mean your grades, they matter, your LSAT, they matter. Of course, something messes up, you get sick for a semester, you have a death in the family, these things are explainable, and performance is justifiable at every level. But the actual application process, I mean, you want to have extracurriculars, you want to make sure your grades are good. The LSAT, of course, which I also recommend doing a prep course for. And I think that at the University of Guelph, the Pre-Law Society, I'm not sure if they still do it, but they had like a code for like $500 off Princeton Law Review, Princeton Review, and that course was really great. That helped me pick it up so much faster. And so extracurriculars, work experience. I mean, work experience can be tough because you're in school, you're not necessarily working in a firm or doing everything, but just generally showing community engagement. I think something that law schools really want to see is that you're going to law school because you're passionate about helping a community that you have already showed interest in
Hmm.
helping. Going to law school for a purpose is really important, I think, to them, not only because you give back to the community from which you came, but also it shows that you're going to have kind of a reason to stay there, a reason
Hmm.
to move forward and persevere, even though it can be a little bit tough sometimes.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. I think sometimes people just think, that seems like a good job or that's going to make me money. But really, to excel at it, like it's going to be those long hours. It's going to be a lot of hard work. And without that passion for it, are you going to really put in the effort to get there? So in law school, like, did you find that your undergrad prepared you well for law school now that you've had your first year there?
It prepared me for the readings, for sure. Even though philosophy is a pretty reading heavy major, law school definitely upped the ante even more. So there was a lot of reading, but it prepared me to break down a lot of, I guess it's legalese in law school, but in philosophy it's like just really like they'll come up with their own definitions for things, use their own terminology, and you've kind of got to decipher it. So it's kind of similar in law where certain words will mean certain things only in the field of law. I can't think of an example, but it kind of prepared me to begin deciphering those texts. Um, and I think the balance of like doing school and trying to live a fulfilling life, that's something that my undergrad prepared me for. I'm not sure if philosophy specifically prepared me for that, but yeah, I think I came in pretty well prepared, but it was still a bit of a learning curve once I got here. Yeah.
How does it differ in terms of like the structure? Like, is it more like self-directed, or is it still very much classroom and similar setting as your undergrad?
It's a similar setting. Sometimes in your undergrad, you could get away with missing a couple classes and then just catching up on the material. It's kind of harder to do that in law school. I've definitely seen people do it. I've definitely had to miss classes. People miss classes all the time, but it's a little bit harder to jump back from that. Partly because the instructors themselves are so incredible that there's no better way to learn the material than to hear it from them and ask questions to them. But it's pretty similar, maybe more classes. Philosophy in the University of Guelph rarely had a class on Friday. I think that was an intentional scheduling thing. So I think through my 4 years at the university, maybe 1 or 2 semesters had a class on Friday. So I always had at least or at most 4 day weeks. Law school is definitely, I'm there 5 days a week. Uh,
Right.
and the library, I make use of that a little bit more. But it's pretty similar. It's pretty comparable. In terms of assessments, though, there are fewer like essays through the semester and more 100% exams or 80% exams and 20% on something else small. But the exams are like weighted a lot heavier. It's a little bit nerve-wracking.
Mm.
The energy in the law school come exam season is definitely a lot different from the majority of the semester, but yeah.
And what do you think the benefits are of being a philosophy major and going like pursuing a degree or a career in law? Because I think there's a lot of like kind of quote unquote pre-law programs that people take, like political science or criminal justice, that kind of thing. But being a philosophy major, what do you think? What benefit do you think that gives you being in the?
That's a good question. I guess this is a novel observation, but from what I've noticed, people who took those more traditional pre-law approaches, they tend to have more of, I guess, like a knowledge bank on government structures
Mhm.
or just general kind of like facts you need to know about the structuring of the government or maybe certain cases here or there. But I've noticed that I've definitely had a leg up in terms of, I guess, legal justifications. So in criminal law, when we talk about the philosophical justifications for why we punish people, when we talk about why the criminal justice system in Canada is so afraid to punish somebody who is not morally blameworthy, when we
Mm.
talk about those things, I definitely have a leg up. And we've spoken also about certain legal philosophers like H.L.A. Hart or Dworkin, and I've definitely had a background in that already prepared. So you kind of come into it with a bit of different background knowledge. Of course, either way, you can learn what the other people know just by being there, but having a background can definitely help. And I think maybe in terms of just general argumentation, maybe, but people come together and figure that out really quickly, whether it's a pre-law background or philosophy. General argumentation is definitely in everybody's back pocket a little bit once you get to law school, especially after writing the LSAT. But writing papers is also different. It's more structured, kind of rigid, kind of to the point,
Mhm.
versus philosophy, you had a lot more space to kind of work with your own ideas and grapple with things publicly, which is just a little bit different. But with the big research papers, I've noticed that that has actually been my strength, having that background, because I did one big research paper which felt like a philosophy paper from my undergrad. And I definitely saw that background supporting my direction and just, I guess, general ability to write it.
Is there anything you've kind of learned in law school, like that you found particularly interesting that you like to kind of bring up now, maybe in conversation with other people? Like, oh, did you know?
That's a great question. That's a great question.
Maybe something you didn't realize, or now you're like, oh, I had no idea that was the case.
Something I didn't realize. That is a good question. I think it's tough to grab one thing because the courses are so, I guess, different. We cover a lot of ground in your first year. You don't get a choice in your courses, so you cover a lot of ground. I've learned a lot. I've learned so much that it's kind of hard for me to pick one thing. But I think in the research course that I did, something that's interesting, there was a big research study where they looked into something called the CSI effect, which
Mm.
is where people who began to watch CSI and then got called on to jury duty. I mean, at least the thesis or hypothesis was that these people who have been watching CSI, like CSI Miami or whatever it is, they would be more primed to be skeptical of forensic evidence unless it was absolutely infallible and to such a high certainty that it would match up with the show. Because in the show, there's always an aha, you have 100% done this and we have the evidence to prove it. But in real life, forensic evidence can only be, it can be damning, but it can also be kind of, well, it kind of points to this thing. And so the study was finding whether or not this has an effect. And I mean, although it's a cool thing, it didn't have a serious effect. But it was a big series of, I guess, research projects were undertaken to see if this effect had anything. And now there's a subsequent effect called the tech effect, which is the same thing, except with technological evidence, video evidence, and seeing if people have been affected by the development of technology in their skepticism as jury members. So that's a cool little area. It's a bit niche, but I did my research on it, and that was something I found really interesting. So,
Yeah, I think a lot of people's perspective is impacted by pop culture. I always find it interesting with a lot of those procedural shows, depending on who the protagonist is, whether it is a CSI person or a cop, for whatever reason, they're there through the entire case. Do you know what I mean? They're the one that, solves it, where in reality, it's like the cop does the arresting. There's a detective. Here's his evidence, and then it goes to court. And then, you know what I mean? There's a lot. That's why, personally, I always preferred Law and Order, because it felt more, obviously it had its drama layer to it, but it felt a little more realistic because you had the cop making the arrest and then it moved on to the lawyers. But yeah.
I was always a fan of Criminal Minds.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I thought it got into the mind of these people, but it was totally unrealistic because it's like each week they would find like a different Jeffrey Dahmer essentially just out there, and it's like that's not a sustainable rate to be catching these serial killers.
No, what society are we living in when it's that the serial killers every week? I think I wouldn't want to live in that society. And so, what do you know what kind of law you want to practice, or which direction you want to go, what you're really leaning to?
Yeah, so currently I'm leaning towards criminal law. I had a really, really, I guess, fruitful first year with the criminal law base course, but then also in my research course, I did personal criminal law research. I did it specifically on jury members and potential growing skepticism based on AI tools that have been developing. So that's kind of an area of interest for me, which actually started at the University of Guelph, beginning in Professor Gus Skorberg's Ethics of AI class, which was now years ago, probably 3 years ago, which is cool. But criminal law is definitely what has my interest at the moment. And I was lucky enough to get accepted into Osgood's criminal law intensive program. So in the winter semester of this year, I'll be getting placed either with the Crown or with a defense firm and just kind of working with them to build some experience in the field and to test the waters and kind of get more involved in criminal law. And the Criminal Law Society position is also something I really am proud of because it was an elected position and that was cool. But criminal law is currently at the moment, but I'm also involved with a clinic. This is a new position. It's called Artists Legal Advice Services. So it's a kind of entertainment law clinic, and they give summary legal advice to small creators, whether it's in television, movies, visual arts, just kind of artists broadly. And I'm starting to get a little more interested in, I guess, entertainment law, I guess, is a side kind of interest. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
That could be really interesting too. I think, a lot of people who want to be in the arts maybe don't think about that side of it and potentially could be taken advantage of. So it's always good to have that free advice and understand, okay, is this contract fair to me, or is it only benefiting, the person who's giving me this contract?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I also have a minor in media and cinema studies from the University of Guelph. So kind of cool to bring that back full circle. I can use that for, at least say I have a background in cinema.
Okay. Was there any particular movie or kind of piece of pop culture that kind of shows lawyers or in law that you particularly like, oh, I really resonate with this,
I think I gotta say my all-time favorite law movie, it's more of a law school movie, is The Paper Chase from the 70s.
Oh, okay.
Absolute classic. Anybody who wants to go to law school should absolutely watch that movie. It's not 100% accurate, but parts of it really capture the experience. So the professors aren't as hard on you as they are in that movie. And cold calling is less of a thing modern day than it was, I guess, back in the 70s, 80s. But it really captures, I mean, it kind of exaggerates, but kind of captures the frantic state of the whole class when exams come around, where you just kind of lock yourself in a room or spend 10 hours in the library or something. Everybody has different schedules, but The Paper Chase is definitely a must watch if you want to go to law school. My mom recommended it to me, and now I think I'm going to make a tradition of watching it at least once a year now.
Nice. Yeah. I think some people really think about lawyers just, giving their closing statement, not the hours spent reading other laws and trying to find precedent and all that.
Yeah.
Well, if you don't, is there anything else we haven't talked about that you want to touch on?
That I can think of. I mean, thank you for having me. I appreciate the invite, and it was nice to talk to you, even though it might have been a little one-sided. I mean, how was your
Hey,
experience at the University of Guelph?
it was great. It was great. I was a drama kid, so I was never really as academically inclined as I probably should have. But it did set me up. The kind of perspective, the storytelling perspective, is what kind of led me into my current career in like marketing and public relations. So definitely put me on that path. But if you don't have anything else you want to talk about, I wouldn't mind leaving you with like one last question. So just go with me with this. So just imagine you could send a message through time and space to your younger self, and you're about to start your first semester at the University of Guelph. What piece of advice would you give yourself?
I would say to myself, enjoy yourself. You only get your undergrad once, and it's going to be some of the best years of your life.
Nice. I like that. Well, I want to thank you again for joining us today. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. It was a great conversation. And if you like what you heard today, please do like and subscribe to wherever you get your podcast. Maybe drop us a review. For any new updates or latest updates, you can follow us on all our socials or visit uofguelph.ca. We'll put all the links in the show notes. Our show's theme music is by Paige Rutledge. She is also a Guelph grad. And we'll be back next with an all-new interview with a new Guelph grad. So till next time, thank you so much for listening.